There's video segments that we have here on this website that deal with science and Bible prophecy and signs. Most of them are under 6 minutes long, and you can venture into whatever area interests you. I want to give you an overview of what you're going to find and what we present at offactor.net. Basically, the Jewish holy writings establish the existence of a being from outside of our space-time dimension. And with that in mind, we can then evaluate science to answer the question, what best explains how life could be established, originate on Earth? Can we explain it with purely natural explanation, or is it better explained from a source outside of our space-time dimension? Many educated people believe strongly in scientific ideas from the 1850s to the 1950s. On this site, we're going to tend to focus on information that's been established in the last 60 years. Let me give you more details, and then you can venture around the website as you see fit. So first of all, let's look at the origins of life. Just a quick summary. You'll be able to see videos on this. Amino acids are not self-replicating. For us to be able to get to the point where we can have life on this planet, we need to reach self-replicating material. That's RNA and DNA. Scientists have ruled out the possibility that we could have a DNA world. They're hoping we can explain the origins of life with an RNA world or a partial RNA world. We're going to look at temperature requirements for the bases of RNA to come together. But the base pairs we're going to run into problems with the temperature requirements. Cytosine and uracil are going to need hot conditions on which to naturally assemble. Adenine and guanine are going to need cold temperatures to naturally assemble, but we need the base pairs to come together, and the temperature requirements are going to make this impossible. No explanation exists currently for how this could occur on our planet. Then we're going to look at, did we have prebiotic material here on this planet? Was there a primordial soup? The examination of kerogen tars helps us to determine the carbon 13 to 12 ratios and the fact that there is no prebiotic material on this planet. Everything we see in organisms embedded here has been postbiotic, so it came from somewhere else. We look at the homochirality necessity for amino acids and how they would come together, and we have a planet that is not now homochiral and never was homochiral, and this frustrates scientists as well. And then we have the Urey-Miller experiments from the 1950s, where they took ideal conditions and they were able to show that we could take some of these possible biotic materials and establish life. But we know, and scientists know if they're objective, that the conditions that they had to have in place to be able to get this to work involved the presence of both water vapor and the absence of oxygen. Photodissonance helps us to understand that if water vapor was present, then we would tend to have those molecules break up. We would have the hydrogen tending to leave the atmosphere, the oxygen would stay present. And so again, the objective scientists that follow the scientific method know there's no evidence that we were void of oxygen at any time. A lot of scientists, including Francis Crick and others, recognize this. They're objective. They discuss this. Even though they don't believe in a God or may not believe in a God, they propose that perhaps aliens from somewhere else in the universe would have brought material here and started life here. Thankfully, because of the study of astrophysics and the need for biology and geneticists to hold themselves accountable for what we discover in the realm of astrophysics, we'll show with videos on this site that it was not possible for aliens to have brought material here at the time in which we needed to begin life on this planet. So in the end, our conclusion at this current point in time is that the ideas and hypotheses that we proposed in the early 1900s and mid-1900s, we now know none of them are plausible. So what is it about these Jewish holy writings that help establish the presence of some very super intelligent, loving being from outside of our space dimension? And for those of you that aren't sure what we're talking about with space dimension, we will discuss that in other videos as well. So what is it in there? Well, right off the bat in the first chapter of Genesis, based on the verbs and the descriptions that are given there, it appears to be describing the Big Bang, the beginnings of our universe, very accurately over the course of many billions of years. If that's not impressive enough, The biggest thing is we see a plan. We see a plan that was established and clearly delineated over the course of 2,000 years, leading up to the emergence of the person who is obviously the Jewish Messiah, and that would be Jesus. And so we see this plan across time, and it involves both writings in the Jewish Holy Book, basically the Jewish Bible and the Christian Old Testament. We also see signs in the lives of patriarchs like Abraham in 2000 BC, Moses 1500 BC, and we see practices still going on within the Jewish tradition that all point to Jesus as the Messiah. The details are so clear that many people who are educated just assumed, well, these things must have been written after Jesus came here. Well, that's not true, because we have the Jewish Bible, we have these Jewish holy writings that we know have been in existence, and these practices have been in existence for literally thousands of years. So we know that there exists a force from outside of our space-time dimension. So as we go into the analysis of how could life originate on Earth, it's an easy call for a statistician or a mathematician like myself. If you look at probability models and the evidence there, naturalism, no explanation for how we can start life on this planet. And since we know that there does exist at least one being from outside of our space-time dimension, outside of our universe and our constraints of time, then the logical choice at this point is clearly on the side of a God, of a super intelligent being that put us here, that created us here. The interesting thing and the good thing when I and others investigate what we see and what the evidence would suggest is that God made this a fair game. When you look at origins of life and you have to hold yourself accountable to the constraints of the other branches of science, we see clearly that the evidence points to there being a God. And then what's really interesting is that the being that we see describing a plan in the Bible for God to become a man, come to earth, live, die on the cross, and raise from the dead, all these things were spelled out, including the greatest persecutor of the early church becoming a Christian eventually. All these things were laid out, and they point to a patient, loving, caring God that put together a plan over the course of time. When we see it, when we look at the being who would have created our universe, we see a very patient God who took billions of years to prepare one planet for life on it and to make it plentiful with resources based on the life forms that preceded human beings on this planet. We see the same thing, patience, care, and love by this being. Then when we see life develop on this planet, we also see those same characteristics. In addition, we see a commonality among these three creations, the plan, the universe, and life, that commonality being the presence of danger, evil, and death, and those types of things. There's a common need by this superintelligent being to put us in a situation that is threatening. And that's very interesting, and we will explore that on this site as well. So we see consistency and evidence to suggest that the being who created the universe, life, and this plan for redemption of mankind would tend to be the same being. They have the same characteristics. So in the end, a couple final thoughts before you let loose on the website, and that is this. This being loves all of us, not just Christians. This being loves Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists. And the good news is we don't have to be divisive. We don't have to fight one another. What we realize when we look at this plan that's laid out logically and that defies natural explanation, we realize that what this God is telling us is that He will take care of everything. He punches our ticket to eternal life. He takes care of it. It's His blood that's shed that will allow us to go into eternity with Him. And this individual who converted from being the greatest persecutor of the early church to being the one responsible for writing most of the New Testament tells us that God has made a provision for those who never hear this full plan. So don't worry. The God that we see in this universe and has this plan for redemption has made accommodations for those who don't hear the plan. That's good, and that takes care of them. But what about us? What about us who hear this and have an opportunity to see this? Our lives are short. We encourage you to make sure that you get it right, choose wisely. We only have so many days, so many years here on this planet. So welcome to awfactor.net. We hope that you discover the things that you need and wrestle well with the cognitive dissonance that can occur when we're challenged in our core beliefs. Thank you.